Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I am going to be dissertating and talking about the natal chart of legendary pop icon Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was born on August 29th, 1958 at 7:33 p.m. in Gary, Indiana, according to astrotheme.com. He died tragically on June 25th, 2009 of acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication. I believe I'm trying to pronounce that right. And anyway, that was after he had suffered cardiac arrest at that time. Anyway, I want to get to his natal chart and talk about some things pertaining to it, and maybe a few things that that were possibly attributed, we can kind of correlate maybe with his death as well. Firstly, I want to talk about his Pisces ascendant and moon in Pisces. This combination, obviously it's a strong Pisces emphasis, could make him very super sensitive, intuitive, maybe perhaps too sensitive to others at times, somewhat nebulous, can be ambivalent, confused, yet multifaceted. Pisces people, personalities can be very versatile, but sometimes similar to Gemini, they can dissipate themselves through, lack of classification and unifying purpose. The moon, I believe, conjunct the ascendant, that also, made him very sensitive, perhaps, to his environment. His sun sign is in Virgo, obviously, making him very analytical, logical, organized, systematic, methodical, and opposing his ascendant, but not just by sign but by degree. So there could have been maybe some conflict between his sun sign, which represented his inner self, and the projection of self or facade, which is the ascendant, which was Pisces in this case. So that could have caused some inner conflict and turmoil with Michael Jackson. Another thing I wanted to talk about was his sun conjunct Pluto in his natal chart. This might have made him feel compelled to transform a lot. We know he did change his appearance quite frequently, which I think is, Pisces influence as well, because they say Pisces can be somewhat of a chameleon at times. And Michael Jackson, really did, never quite seemed satisfied with his appearance. He always, had numerous, changes, surgical procedures with his face, as we know. Also, Pluto, Sun conjunct Pluto can also be, destructive, possibly on some level, and made him maybe very, skeptical and cynical of others, and being very suspicious of people, and possibly in connection with maybe people he thought were, were just using him to, meet their own ends and didn't have his interests in heart. Another thing I want to talk about is his Neptune in the 8th house, and that could indicate death in conjunction with alcohol, drugs, medication, chemicals. In this case, it was the drugs that were connected with his doctor at that time. The 8th house ruler in the 6th, conjuncts Uranus in Michael Jackson's chart, so it could be indicative of an unusual death or demise which did take place, because Uranus is obviously a planet that's connected with unpredictable events and unexpected things that happen. Also, he had preponderance of planets and mutable signs, which unfortunately, despite making a person very pliable and adaptable, it could also maybe make somebody susceptible to the needs, of others, maybe a little bit too much. It could indicate somebody that might have had his life dictated by, a lot of other people, and other people maybe factoring more than they should in his decision making. It could make somebody a little bit too malleable for their own good. He also had a fairly good concentration of planets in fixed signs, especially in Leo, having the conjunction stellium in Leo in his 6th house of work. No great shocker there, Leo being the sign of the performer and actor, which gave him certain flamboyancy, and obviously his singing ability is more than just a little bit pronounced, as we know, being the legendary singer he was. And in that sixth house of work, he obviously had a lot of emphasis, and work perhaps dominated his existence to some degree, and put a lot of effort into his singing and creative endeavors. Saturn conjuncts the midheaven in Michael Jackson's chart, and somebody with Saturn conjunct the midheaven could be somebody that works very hard and laboriously and very disciplined in conjunction with their career endeavors. Could also, on the negative side, indicate a very authoritative and or domineering parent, which we know to some degree the father was somewhat fit that description, although the father put a lot of emphasis on Michael's career and was obviously very beneficial to his career at the same time. Another thing I'd like to talk about with Michael Jackson is that he had majority of his planets were below the horizon, or the southern half of his natal chart, which would incline more toward introversion as opposed to extroversion, being more subjective as opposed to objective. Someone that thrived a little more on privacy, which obviously is in conflict a little bit to his stellium in Leo emphasis, because obviously that's the sign of the performer, and that's very gregarious. But yet at the same time, Michael, I believe he had that side to him where he liked his seclusion and he liked his privacy. So I think there might have been some conflict and turmoil with him as far as that went as well. Another thing that I wanted to talk about as far as Michael Jackson goes is that this is more in connection what I want to talk about with Conrad Murray and Michael's untimely demise. Now Conrad Murray, his time is unknown, so I don't know his precise positions of his planets per se, but his sun sign, is in very early Pisces, more likely than not 0 degrees Pisces, and that falls in Michael Jackson's 12th house of, hidden matters and secrets, which shows me right there that's a telling sign that maybe, he went into Michael's private life a little more than he needed to, and Michael may very well have been adaptable to this, and, obviously perhaps allowed him to do this as well. And the fact that his sun sign, we could say Conrad Murray's sun sign conjuncted Michael's ascendant, shows that they had some compatibility in a very strong bond, being that the inner self for Conrad Murray, which is Pisces, was in tune with Michael Jackson's outer personality, facade, or projection of self, which is Pisces. And in making a long, Conrad's sun making a long conjunction, if you will, 13 degrees to Michael's moon, though that's not really technically a conjunction, but still in pretty close proximity, show that he was probably attuned to Michael's, his emotions and his, emotional needs and wants as well. And, probably, as we know, got a little bit too close for comfort to Michael Jackson. Also, I believe his sun sign, Conrad Murray's sun sign, was opposition Michael's sun sign in Pluto in Virgo, and that could indicate some conflict right there, and possibly there could have been more of a turbulent relationship between the two than maybe what was revealed on the surface 100%. Also, Conrad Murray's moon, in all likelihood, was in fairly close proximity, probably a conjunction to Michael Jackson's Mars. So that could have indicated, maybe a little more animosity and tension between the two, and that perhaps, could there have been something volatile that, may have existed between the two, or maybe could have existed if Michael had lived, longer. That's something, obviously we'll never know 100%. And on a closing note, I just like to say that, Michael Jackson obviously, talent that transcended time, and very untimely demise. We lost, not just a great pop icon and legend, but we lost a great, person as well, and somebody that was very, very compassionate and, philanthropic, and I think that was attributed a lot to his Pisces influence. Again, his sun, not his sun sign, I'm sorry, his rising sign in Pisces coupled with his moon in Pisces made him, a lot of that was connected. With that being that they're, water sign, Pisces, and I think that's where you saw a lot of his sympathy was originating from those influences. Well, anyway, people, this is going to conclude this YouTube astrological segment for my dissertation of Michael Jackson's natal chart. And the next thing you're going to see, it's going to be, I'm going to continue my aspect, series. It's going to be the ascendant and major adverse aspect to Venus in the natal horoscope. And two things I want to get with you on is that, firstly, of course, the stars may impel but do not compel, and secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, or what have you, and make an analysis on a person, astrologically speaking, because a person astrologically is the sum of all the components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.